information, science about psychology and personal development in my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. And today we will be discussing about anxiety. What is it? What are symptoms of anxiety and what is known nowadays according to science about anxiety, and what are some efficient evidence-based strategies. Today you will learn what is anxiety is and what isn't, and how it works in the brain and body, and we will also discuss about different ways of different types of anxiety disorders and what science says about most effective treatments. And you also would learn several strategies that you can use to help yourself to cope better with anxiety if you are experiencing anxiety symptoms. Anxiety is one of most common mental health challenges in the world, and however, it's one of the most misunderstood symptoms, challenges that people are experiencing. So maybe you have felt that your heart is racing before a meeting, or you avoided a social situation because it felt too overwhelming, and maybe you feel awake at 3 a.m. with your mind spinning. And many people can experience anxiety at certain points of their lives. However, if it's considerably impacting your functionality and day, it's important to take treatment to apply for more individualized support, maybe to take recommendations from your medical doctor, and to refer yourself to psychotherapy. And so what is anxiety? Anxiety is not a normal worry. It's very important to understand differences between real worry and anxiety. As anxiety, normal worry can be proportional to the situation. It can be temporary. It can go away when situation resolves, and it wouldn't significantly interfere with your life. Whereas anxiety disorder, disproportionate to the situation, it might be persistent, often lasting more than 6 months or more, and it might be interfering with your daily functioning, and it involves also physical symptoms such as feeling nervous before a job interview, and unable to leave the house because of fear, and this is called anxiety disorder. And this difference matters because anxiety disorders are real medical condition. It's not a weakness, it's not a character flaw, it's not overthinking, but something you can, not something that you just can snap out of it. And what happens in the brain when a person is experiencing anxiety is that at the center of amygdala, your brain's alarm system, it detects a possible threat or a perceived threat, and it fires instantly, and this triggers flight or fight freeze response. Adrenaline and cortisol flood the body, and heart rate increases, and breathing quickens, muscles tense, digestion slows. The system evolved to save your life because in the past, people were living under hard circumstances, these qualities were helping us to stay safe. For instance, if a lion was chasing you, this response was perfect. So the problem is that your amygdala cannot tell the difference between a lion and a difficult email, and between physical danger and social rejection, and it fires the same alarm. And whenever you are not able to distinguish this difference, you can function in autopilot, and you might have a lot of anxiety, and it might cause you a lot of difficulties in performing well or pursuing your everyday activities. And while if you are having anxiety disorder, this alarm system is chronically overactivated, and your brain is stuck in threat mode even when there is no real threat. And what are some types of anxiety disorders? First of them is anxiety is not one condition, it's a family of related disorders, and first of them is generalized anxiety disorder. It's persistent, excessive worry, and many different things, and it can be difficult to control, and physical symptoms include fatigue, muscle tension, sleep problems. The next one is social anxiety disorder, which is accompanied by intense fear of social situations, being judged, embarrassed, or rejected, and it can often lead to avoidance. Panic disorder includes reoccurring unexpected panic attacks, sudden intense fear with physical symptoms such as racing heart, shortness of breath, dizziness, and persistent fear of having more attacks. So oftentimes I notice that people are not afraid of panic disorder, but of its symptoms, like how it would impact them and what would other people think about them if they would be having panic attacks. And the next one is specific phobias. It can be in the form of intense fear of a specific object or situation. It can be related with heights, spiders, flying, blood. And the next one is health anxiety. This might include excessive worry about having a serious illness, constantly going to doctors, checking, trying to control, and trying to find possible causes of feeling this or that way despite medical reassurance. So why does it matter to understand what are types of anxiety disorders? Because each type has specific evidence-based treatment, and knowing what you are dealing with is the first step to healing. So how anxiety maintains itself? One of the most important things to understand about anxiety is this: the things we do to feel better often make anxiety worse in long run. For instance, maybe a trigger appears, maybe you are afraid or anxious about a certain thought, feeling, or situation, and maybe you have a thought that something bad is going to happen. So your body responds in the form of heart race, breathing quickens, and you feel intense discomfort. So you start to avoid situations, conversations, the thought or the feeling, or you do things to distract yourself. And in short term, this might feel you might feel good, you might feel relieved, and you would feel better immediately. However, in long run, this might be impacting your functionality. Anxiety would increase even more, because each time you are avoiding certain thing, you are sending signals to your brain. You are teaching your brain that there is something to be avoided, and your brain may start to interpret it as if there is a real danger, even if this situation, for instance, is not so much dangerous. For instance, imagine if you have a fear or anxiety speaking in social situations. If you constantly avoid, your brain might start to accept it as if there is a real threat, or this is really dangerous, and over time it will be even more difficult for you to face your fears. So constantly avoiding, procrastinating creates even more signals of anxiety. And therefore avoidance is the oxygen that feeds anxiety, and every time you avoid, you strengthen it. So what are the role of the thoughts? Anxiety has very characteristic thinking patterns. Let's look at them in more details. First of them can be catastrophizing, assuming that the worst will happen. For instance, try to imagine or recall what's happening, which thoughts you have whenever you are afraid of something or you feel anxious. Try to notice your thoughts, and oftentimes you would notice that you are catastrophizing or thinking about the worst case scenario. For instance, maybe you think, if I make a mistake in the presentation, my career would be over. And another thing is overestimating threat, believing something is far more dangerous than it actually is. Or underestimating coping. You can be forgetting about your coping mechanisms and just focused on negativities, challenges that you have, believing you can't handle difficult situations or feelings, or you won't be able to cope. And the next one is mind reading, assuming that you know what others are thinking, and even if you don't know the exact situation or their perspective. And usually it results in challenges in relationships and arguments. Or you might think that they think I'm stupid. You might have different thoughts about yourself or that other people are thinking. And especially for people with social anxiety, for instance, they might have some thoughts that people would criticize them, or they are constantly monitoring them or trying to find flaws. So noticing these thoughts is important, because when you will notice that these thoughts are very far from reality, or they are exaggerated, it will be easier for you to calm down and to focus on what matters. becoming aware that these thoughts are not useful. And the next one is fortune telling, predicting negative outcomes as certainties, as if it can often happen when, for instance, imagine if a person has failed several times, they start to assume that they are going to fail again, that they are a failure or they are not successful. So how would this impact their emotions? How would this impact their behavior? Maybe they would start avoiding things. They stop taking risk or trying new things. However, if they have tried, uh, if they were more courageous, or if they were thinking differently, they would be more likely to be successful. So noticing your thoughts is important, and these are strategies that you use in cognitive behavioral therapy. For instance, in fortune telling, maybe you have some thoughts that I know it's going to go wrong. However, there is no guarantee. Things might go uh, good or bad. We cannot know for sure. And in psychotherapy, what we are doing, we are helping the people to experiment. For instance, if they have these cognitive distortions about themselves or about the world or about their work, by trying new strategies, experimenting, trying new behaviors, you can again teach your brain that this is not all the time true, and um, by exposing to situations that are causing them anxiety, they slowly learn, teach their brains that it's not as dangerous or scary or anxious as it seems. So oftentimes these thoughts might be leading to anxiety, and when they go unnoticed, it's difficult to heal. So the first step using cognitive behavioral therapy goes through becoming aware of your thoughts and thoughts that might be contributing to anxiety or certain avoidance behaviors. And these patterns are generally learned during the childhood or when you were young. And over time, you start to notice these thoughts and these patterns that lead to avoidance. And whenever you start to realize that these are not serving you anymore, it's easier to take steps towards the change. And the same patterns, in the same manner as you have learned uh, to behave in certain manner, you can unlearn it again, and you can learn a lot of effective, useful strategies or behavioral patterns. So what works for anxiety and the science of treatment? There are a lot of evidence-based treatments for anxiety, and first of them, as we have already started discussing, cognitive behavioral therapy is the gold standard treatment for anxiety disorders. There is decades of research, hundreds of randomized control trials, and for instance, 2015 meta-analysis covering over 100 studies showed that CBT produces large effect sizes for major anxiety disorders, and effects are maintained at follow-up. And what CBT does, it identifies and challenges distorted thoughts, gradually exposes you to feared situations. This is called exposure therapy, and teaches you coping skills. Exposure therapy in particular directly breaks the avoidance cycle and teaches the brain that situation is manageable and that you can cope. Another important strategy is ACT for anxiety. We started to discussing it in previous sessions, and instead of fighting anxious thoughts, ACT teaches us to diffuse from them, to notice thoughts and feelings you might have that might be contributing for avoidance or causing anxiety. And instead of avoiding discomfort, it encourages you to accept feelings and thoughts and to change your relationship with the thoughts. It's not directly working with the content of the words, but it's helping the people to realize whether certain thoughts are useful for them or they are not serving them, and instead of constantly trying to change the thought or to consider whether there is a cognitive distortion or not, in the therapy we are simply learning how we can change relationship with them, and how we can develop new ways of seeing thoughts, feelings, or situations that would help us to achieve our goals or goals from the therapy, and help us to get closer towards the change that we want to see. So research shows that ACT is also effective as CBT for anxiety, with some advantages for people who struggle with rigid thought control. And there are a lot of mindfulness-based approaches. Mindfulness-based stress reduction developed by Kabat-Zinn has strong evidence for anxiety, and there are a lot of meta-analysis found significant reductions in anxiety symptoms. Mindfulness works for strengthening prefrontal cortex, the brain's regulation center, while reducing amygdala activity, and over time you become less reactive towards anxious triggers, whether it's thoughts, feelings, or situations. And also solution-focused brief therapy, there are a lot of research and meta-analysis showing that it's efficient for anxiety disorders, and panic attacks. And in solution-focused brief therapy, instead of trying to understand the cause of the problem or focusing on the problem, we are focusing more on solutions and what the person really wants, helping them to describe the change that they want, and slowly trying to understand what might work for that person, what worked in the past, and what they want to have instead of anxiety. Is it calmness? Is it patience? Is it joy? Is it happiness? And helping the client to see the moments in the past when this was already present, and help them to understand what contributed for that outcome, what was there about the person, environment, about different factors that contributed for the change, for the desired outcome to be present at that moment. And then we are slowly helping the client to describe the change they want to see, and to understand what they need in order to see this change. And in solution-focused brief therapy, we are using a collaborative approach, and we are giving autonomy to the client and helping the person to understand what are their needs, whereas in CBT we are being more directive, there is more psychoeducation. And ACT differs that it has more meditation, mindfulness basis. So there are different approaches for treating anxiety, and a person might choose which one they would like to use and to work with in the psychotherapy. And in some cases, if the anxiety is very strong and it's considerably impacting your daily functioning, you can also consult with your doctor about medications. Particularly SSRI and SNRIs can be effective for anxiety disorders. It's not a weakness, not a crutch. Research shows that therapy combined with medication often outperforms either alone, especially for moderate to severe anxiety, especially if a person is extremely scared of situations, or they are not able to have exposure therapy, for instance, or to be exposed to their fears, to anxiety. If symptoms are extremely strong, using medications helps the brain to learn to be exposed, and to learn that it's not as scary as the person thinks. And after even slowly decreasing the anxiety, it will be easier for the person to do things that they were avoiding. And always working with psychiatrists for medication is important, because psychotherapists cannot give any suggestions or prescribe medications. And if you think that you need medication, it's important to refer for psychiatrists or to medical doctors, to family doctor in Canada. And also always considering therapy, psychotherapy alongside is important. And so we have discussed that avoidance doesn't work in long term, and even it increases anxiety. Reassurance seeking is also constantly asking for others, trying to control the situation. For instance, in health anxiety, constantly going to doctors and asking, am I going to be okay? Might feel relieving, but it is one of the sources that feeds anxiety cycle. And distractions also as a sole strategy. It might work in a short run, but in the long run, if you are using them constantly, this will not be useful for you, because as again you will be distracting yourself, and avoiding anxiety will decrease. And trying to suppress your feelings, thinking that you shouldn't have these feelings, I shouldn't have these thoughts. Trying to suppress, avoid feelings also increases their intensity. And not trying to think about certain things makes you think about it even more. As we have discussed it about the white bear effect, according to research, when a certain group of people were participating in this research, and when they were trying not to think about certain things, it was found out that they started to think about it even more. So the goal here is not eliminate anxiety. Anyone can experience certain levels of anxiety at certain times of their life. However, learning to act, to live fully, to include meaning into your life despite having uncomfortable thoughts, this is one of more meaningful goals. So there are different strategies to cope with anxiety. One of them is grounding techniques. There are a lot of variety of different grounding techniques that you can use, that you can to help yourself at times when you will have anxiety. First of them is noticing what's around you. What are some sounds, colors, shapes? Asking yourself, where are you? For instance, trying to remember the date. Examining, trying to notice who is around you. If you have a cold water, drinking a cold water. These are some strategies that you can use that can help you to decrease anxiety or panic attacks at the times when you will be experiencing it. There are also different types of grounding exercises. You can watch about them, and you can try to apply at times when you will have anxiety. Grounding exercises work because they activate parasympathetic nervous system and with your rest and digest mode, and it's possible to be fully grounded in your senses and catastrophizing at the same time. So you are in a sense directing your attention towards other things such as sounds, physical sensations, right, colors, shapes, or visual factors. So in a manner, you are shifting away from your worries and you are distracting yourself at that moment, and this helps to connect with present moment. And you cannot do two things at the same time, to focus on shapes, for instance, smells, and at the same time to think about different things, and this automatically helps you to calm down. And there are a lot of breathing exercises which works in the same manner. When you are focusing your attention on your physical symptoms, you are automatically, anxiety is decreasing. And breathing exercise is one of fastest scientifically proven ways to reduce physiological anxiety under 30 seconds. It was discovered by neuroscientist Andrew Huberman and his team at Stanford. And taking double inhale through nose, one long breath immediately followed by a short sharp sniff, then one long slow exhale through the mouth, and trying it all together was found to considerably decrease anxiety levels. And there are different strategies that are used in CBT, for instance, setting different times for worries, such as worry times, and mindfulness meditation exercises, noticing your thoughts that are contributing to anxiety and learning to relate to them differently. And so as we have discussed, there are a lot of different types and ways of managing anxiety, and the good news is that it's treatable, and there are a lot of evidence-based therapy types that you can use in order to help yourself to cope and to return to your daily functioning and to live your life fully. So most of time, treat anxiety is not an enemy, and oftentimes I notice that when anxiety is persistent or it's difficult to change, oftentimes people are scared of their symptoms or about anxiety. But if you can change the relationship with it and see it as something that is trying to help you to keep you safe, or trying to remind you about, trying to take care about you, or remind you about what matters for you, what's important for you, you would notice that anxiety is considerably decreasing, because you stop seeing it as an enemy and something to be eliminated. You can slowly invite it into your life and still do a lot of things despite these uncomfortable feelings. And instead of seeing it as an enemy, you can start to see it as just information, or just a system that tries to tell what's important for you, what's meaningful for you. And anxiety is your nervous system saying something that matters for you, pay attention, and it's pointing at something you care about. It can be relationship, goal, value, your education. And when you shift from I need to get rid of anxiety, what is anxiety telling me? Everything is changing. So asking yourself, what does anxiety care about? What value is underneath it? What would I do if I weren't so afraid? Helps you to remind yourself about what creates meaning in your life, what's important for you. And this doesn't mean letting anxiety ruin your life. It means having different conversation with it, from enemy to messenger. And there were some questions that you have previously asked. One of them was, can anxiety go away completely? For most people, they see that considerable decrease in anxiety levels after having psychotherapy, but anxiety can be significantly reduced. However, the goal of therapy isn't zero anxiety. It's normal for people to have anxiety. It's a common it's proof that we are human beings and we cannot delete our feelings 100%. However, we can learn a lot of strategies to cope better, to manage it better, and to start living despite these uncomfortable feelings. And many people, from debilitating anxiety to functioning well with occasional manageable worry. And how many therapy sessions does it take? I cannot answer to this question because everyone's needs and everyone's symptoms are different and everyone's approach is different. But for specific phobias, according to research, it can take from 1 to 5 sessions of exposure therapy. For generalized anxiety disorder, it might take longer, according to research, from 12 to 20 sessions. But improvement is often noticed within the first few sessions. But again, as I said, everyone's needs are different, and everyone might have different terms, different timing for the healing. And is medication always needed? Not always. Many people recover fully without medication, but again, psychiatrists and family doctors are the ones who are deciding whether you need medication or not. And in many cases, according to research, medication is most helpful for moderate to severe anxiety, and when therapy alone is not providing enough relief, or when somebody needs stabilization before they can engage in therapy. And what about anxiety in children? It's very common and very treatable condition. Child-friendly CBT, again, solution-focused brief therapy, exposure therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, have strong evidence of efficiency. And the worst thing is avoiding all triggers, because this strengthens anxiety. And one, age-appropriate exposure with parental support is important, and also support of family is important while working with children. So these were questions that you asked me. Let me check here also if you have any questions. What is the cause of anxiety? Like anyone can have anxiety, and having feelings is quite normal. And this can be related to trauma or negative experiences you had in the past. This can be related with family dynamics, about how people perceive stress. Like, for instance, if in your family there were a lot of people who were anxious or who were diagnosed with anxiety disorder, you might be copying their behavior without being aware, especially during the childhood. So maybe you are copy pasting their behavior, and like you think that these are the coping mechanisms. However, it can be difficult to realize it and to become aware of it without going to therapy. So once the person understands what are the reasons, underlying reasons, it can be genetical factors also. Some people are more sensitive, some people are more resilient towards the stress. So I cannot, like, there is no common answer for this question, since it can differ according to a person, their lived experiences, their ways of perceiving the world, their culture, their beliefs. So in therapy, what we are doing is we are helping the person to understand what can be the reason, or like, again, according to the therapy, some therapies are trying to understand the reason, underlying causes, going deeper into the problem, what caused it, and trying to help the person to change. Other therapies are focusing on possible solutions, not examining what has caused it, and they are more focusing on what the person wants instead. So all of them are focused on the change, like, it's normal for people to have anxiety at certain levels. So what kind of change you would like to see instead? What are your hopes from therapy? Like, what's the main reason for you to attending therapy? And so according to it, we are working with every person, and we are asking them different questions to help them to understand what they want, what they need, and supporting them in this journey while they are trying to achieve the change they want to see. Thank you for your attention, and if you will have any other questions, don't forget to leave them in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and share it with anyone with whom you think this video might benefit. See you in the next videos, and take good care of yourself.